Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're going to call this episode 43 of this series, but this really is going to stand out by itself. So if you're earlier in this series, you can watch this one without having seen the ones before it. If you're coming from another app, this one will also help as well, because the point of this video is to upgrade the Firebase plugins for Flutter to the latest versions as of mid-September 2020, and there have been a lot of breaking changes lately, and so we're going to tackle those. Why would they make so many breaking changes? Why would they make it so hard on us? Well, the Flutter team, remember, is trying to make Flutter a pixel painting application for anywhere. So we have great support for mobile so far, iOS, Android. They're working on the web, they're working on desktop, and they need to be flexible with these plugins so that they can meet all of those different needs. And so when you look at the Flutter Fire, all these ones in orange are still in beta, which means they're subject to breaking changes, which is what we have seen lately. So I am going to upgrade this project, and I'm going to do that in pubspec.yaml. And so these are the versions that I have now. And so first of all, for core, I have the latest of the 0.4 series, and I am going to update that to 0.5. Now for Firebase Auth, I am going to take that to 0.18. You may be pulling off on pub.dev, you may be pulling off slightly later versions. I think that'll be okay as long as there aren't more breaking changes in the future. But these just happen to be the latest ones right now. So Cloud Firestore I'm going to take from 0.13, which is the old style, to 0.14, and there are a ton of breaking changes in that one. And all of these are pretty well logged. So let me just pull up Cloud Firestore. If you go to the change log, you'll see relatively small changes up through here, 13, 12, and then you get to 14 and you have all of these depreciated and breaking changes here. So when I run pub-get, it's going to break a lot of my application, and then I'm going to sort it out from there. Let's see, I've got Auth, Firestore. I also have Firebase storage, so it's best to just go ahead and do the full suite of all the Firebase plugins at once. A couple other I'm just going to take advantage of while I'm at it. I'm going to move provider up to 4.3. Aren't any breaking changes in there that I'm aware of, and I think there's a slightly later version with just some bug fixes on rx.dart, so I'm going to change that as well. And I'm going to call that good. All right, so I can see I've got some errors here in Auth block. I've got some errors here in my Firestore service. So this is a service that is dedicated to the database searches for Cloud Firestore, and you can see I've got some depreciated references here. I've got some outright breaks here and here. So let's go ahead and address those. So the first thing I got going on here is this document has been changed. So when we look here in the change documentation, I can see in here that, let's see, documents has been changed to, let me do a search there. Yeah, okay, it was right up top. Documents is now doc. Right here. So everywhere I've got document needs to be doc, so I'm going to make use of my Command D. And I've got a couple name variables, but I can go ahead and change those too. So we're just going to change that all to doc. And that will solve that. Now, next thing I see, right up here at the top for Firestore, so this has been replaced as well. We're now doing Firebase Firestore instance right here. So we knew Firebase Firestore is the type, and then Firebase Firestore instance. All right, so I was using set data here. Set data is now changed to set. And I have that down here in set product as well, so we'll change that to set. Now there's also an options to set, so we can see these set options. And there were options before with set data. I didn't use them in the initial implementation here. I'm not so much worried about add user because that's a one-time thing. But the set product is, in this particular application, is both a insert and an update. And I really want to merge these. My experience with .13 is that the merge flag didn't actually work. But so far, checking this out, it does seem to work. So there's now an options where you can set options, and you can set the merge field to true or false. And so what that means is that if the merge field is true, what it will do is if you have submitted an update for 3 fields, then it will ignore the other fields and just update the 3 fields. If you set that equal to false and you go to update, it will wipe out any field you're not specifically specifying, and you will just get the fields you did include. So if you had 10 fields in the record and you sent 5 and your merge was set to true, you would now get a record with just 5 values and the other 5 would be dropped. So by setting merge to true, I can update 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields, whatever, and the fields that aren't specifically mentioned will be left alone. And I do need to pass that in to set product as a second argument. Okay, so set data is now set. Anywhere I have snapshot.data, I now need to open and close parentheses immediately afterwards. So we'll do that there. And here. And here. And here. Also, anywhere I was getting the documents off a query document snapshot, I now need to get just docs. So we'll do that there. I'll do Command D, get all 3 instances, and that should just be docs now. All right, so that fixes everything in my Firestore reference. Now on to auth. So auth result is no longer auth result. We are instead getting something called a user credential. There, I just have 2 instances there. So user credential. And I also, in this app, I created a user model, and that now interferes with the auth user. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to models, and I'm going to make this an application user, and I might as well just change the name of that to application user as well, application underscore user. And so now back in my auth block, when I was using the user here, I don't actually want to use the user because that is the Firebase auth user. I want to use application user, and I think that's all instances. So let me just Command D. Do application user. And then lastly, when I check for current user, that used to be an asynchronous call, and it's now a property, so we can take that off, and we can also get rid of the await. And this will now get my current user as a user object, which is the Firebase Auth user, and it is no longer asynchronous. In my Firestore service, because I changed my model, I broke all those. So let me do Command D there as well. And I'm going to do application user, and I'm going to import, and that should fix all that. All right, so that will get rid of all the errors. One more thing you definitely need to watch out for, though, is with Firebase Core 0.5, you now need to initiate Firebase before you call it, much as you would do for an admin app or a JavaScript app. And so we now need to do that in Flutter, specifically initialize Firebase before we make any calls to it. That can be done in multiple ways. The way I have been doing it is I do it in the main class. And so I'm going to go to main.dart, and instead of just calling run app cleanly like this, I am going to set up a block of code here where I can take care of that. So I'm going to get rid of my beloved arrow function and do a block. And the first thing I want to call is widgets flutter binding dot ensure initialized. And nextly, we want to await the Firebase application initialization. So let me make this async, and let's await Firebase. Let's bring in Firebase dot initialize app, and I'll code format that, and that should be good. Now, if you've come as far as I have and you've flipped a bunch of these, it will work fine. It should work fine with Android if you fire this up. iOS has been a little shaken by this experience usually. So what I had to do when I did this to get it running, got something unsaved. Is Flutter clean. And when that was finished, I ran pod repo update. And once that had finished, I went into the iOS folder and I deleted this pods folder. And I also deleted podfile.lock and moved to trash. And you might as well give this a shot on your iOS device, but if it says, pod files are out of date and it crashes, then give this a try. And then from there, I was able to type Flutter run, and it took an awful long time to download all the new pods, but once it did, it ran just fine. So hopefully this helps. I've been getting a ton of comments on people struggling with this on this series and all of my other videos that are Cloud Firestore 0.13 or Firebase Core 0.4 or earlier. And so I wanted to get this out to give you a hand on upgrading. So thanks for watching. Hope that helps, and we'll see you soon.